Hi, everyone. It's Lynn from Divine Central. This is the first in a six-part series on my journey into how I added crystal divination to my tarot practice. I'm going to detail every aspect of my learning process for those who wish to follow me into this beautiful, colorful modality. I'll take you from where the hell do you start in the first place to, well, my professional debut here in Texas this last year. So if you've watched any part of my series on reading professionally at fairs and festivals, or even my teaching kids tarot, then you already know what kind of detail you can expect from me. I mean, holy cow, I put a lot of work and effort into these things. But many will say and have already said that I've made it too hard. But you know what? That's how I roll. So you have my permission to take what you need and leave the rest. We all have a different learning style, but I hope that it's something that you will really enjoy. So this is the lay of the land. Today's video number one, I'm going to show you my why, and I'm going to show you how this whole thing got started. And then I'm going to give you all the tools today that I found worked the best for me. And I'm doing that up front so that you can spend the next week, perusing them, looking, maybe ordering a few things in case you want to follow along with me. So next week, and every week thereafter. But next week, video number two is going to be my learning process and how I put all those tools to work. Then, video number three, I'll cover the decisions that I had to make to turn this into a crystal reading practice. I was shell-shocked to find that there is no set anything out there for this. So you really have to develop your own. Video number four, I'm going to introduce you to my 72 different crystals and my meanings for them. And then in videos 5 and 6, I am going to give you some sample readings. I have two different casting mats. I have a casting mat and a casting tray, and I'm going to do one whole video on with samples on each one because they're different reading styles. Okay, so I have had a penchant for crystals and baubles since I decided to turn professional in my tarot reading. And, I was hitting the stores and buying decks and books and what have you. And there were all these beautiful stones. And I started collecting little ones. And then I started collecting bigger ones. And then I got into a sphere kick. And then it was a tower kick. Ended up with a heart-shaped kick. And oh my God, I mean, then it was statement pieces. So while my husband and I were traveling for 18 months across the eastern half of the United States, I was collecting crystals from Maine all the way down the Appalachian Trail, all the way down to North Carolina and Chattanooga. We even stopped in Hot Springs, Arkansas at the Coleman mines, and I picked up some big, beautiful slag stones and quartz. Oh, it's just insane, the collection that I've been working on. Kind of like my tarot decks. I think I have 74 now. So back in 2019, I attended a psychic fair in outstate Minnesota. A friend and I we were scouting for different new event planners. And I saw this gal reading crystals, and her casting tray was bright white, and her stones were multicolored and beautiful. And there were so many people that surrounded her, I couldn't get close enough to see how she was reading them. But I knew from that moment that I wanted to do the same thing someday. And in fact, when I rebranded my business in 2021, the Beyond in Tarot Lenormand and Beyond was actually, I was going to add crystals as another modality. And well, there you go. I finally did. When I got to South Texas in 2023, I tried a few of the local markets. They're kind of like a huge craft show, right? Or flea market, what have you. And what few fairs that were out there and available to me. But they weren't nearly as organized or as professional as they are or were up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, South Dakota. There was only one event planner, and he started letting in these $10 and $20 tarot readers, some of whom had their little white books sitting on their desk. Can you imagine that? Anyway, at most of the events, the bulk of the people seemed to gather around the booths that were selling crystals, which was, for some reason, it's a big fascination down here, as is energy clearing. It's taken a few years, but I finally made that hop skip into making crystal magic an everyday part of my life. And every day I'm learning. It's never ending, ever. So, where do you start when you know nothing about crystals other than the fact that they're really pretty and that you are inexplicably drawn to them? Well, follow me and I'll show you the way. I started by tallying up all the people that I thought could help put me on the right path. I mean, these are people that I know who either who've worked with crystals or are either teaching grids or clearing chakras or selling stones. My first friend suggested that I pick 7 to 10 different colored stones, assign meanings to them, and then just keep it simple. I knew nothing about chakras at that time, but I reasoned that, hey, if I stayed with those colors, I could easily transition into energy healing or chakra work down the road. I chose the 8 basic stones of the chakras. You know, heart has two, right? Pink and green. I later added brown, black, and gray. So I had 11 stones to work with. And I spent a good solid month really studying them. And I'm talking about, full time. Well, off down the rabbit hole I went, pulling every meaning I could find on those colors. I'm not sure if my tarot mentality took over or what, but at the end of the day, all of a sudden I realized there are way more facets to life than 11 stones can give. Now, I know there's going to be intuitives that are going to, they're going to dispute that with me, but you know what? In my eyes, I can only equate so much to the color red or blue or yellow. But in order to ferret out all the details, you'll be reading almost exclusively intuitively. And that's just not my reading style. So, in other words, I am intuitive, but I don't read solely intuitively. Okay. So I had to go back to the beginning. I had to give up all the meanings that I had so painstakingly put together. I started my journal by reading books and articles and websites and blogs, and I binge watched whatever videos I could find again. What I found so amazing was that A, there were very few videos devoted to crystal divination. And B, nearly all the books on the subject and the websites and the directories, they all had different meanings for each crystals. I mean, it was so confusing. So that's my why. I'm going to wrap up this first video by giving you all the resources that I discovered were the most helpful to me. Okay, let's start with the books. I have 8 or 9 books on crystals, 5 of which I added for this project. Here are the ones that helped me the most. The New Crystal Bible by Cassandra Eason, Crystal and Gemstone Divination by Gail Butler, #1 of all my resources. The Key to Crystals by Sarah Bartlett. I found it late in the game, but I really liked the book. I liked the way it was laid out. The Illustrated Guide to Crystals by Judy Hall, wonderful book. And The Book of Stones by Robert Simmons and Naisha Hashan. And somebody recommended the book to me. And so I immediately went out and found it and bought it. And when I showed it to her, she said, "Oh, you got the big version." I guess there's an abbreviated version, but I'm glad I got the one I did. There are other books that I feel deserve a mention. There is Crystal Prescriptions by Judy Hall. I got this one years ago when I first got interested in crystals. So, for example, if you're depressed, you can go and it will tell you what stones for depression. It will tell you what stones if you have gout. It will tell you, what stones if you're fearful, whatever. But it's a great little directory. Lithomancy, The Psychic Art of Reading Stones by Gary Wimmer. I would put that #3 on my list of all-time favorite books that I found. How to Use a Crystal by Richard Webster, and Cassandra Eason's Healing Crystals by, well, of course, Sandra Eason. Now, I will talk more about why I did not use healing crystals or healing definitions in my first go round, and that'll be for the next video. So when I started watching the videos, years ago there were only like 2 videos at all on YouTube, and now there's like a whole bunch of them. But the quality is just bad. I mean, they're either waxing esoteric, and I'm talking off the deep end, or the information is so poorly presented that it's just worthless to me anyway. If you run into any really good ones, by all means, please drop me a note and let me know, because I'm always forever looking for the good ones. So here are the videos that I found the most helpful. My Divination crystal board by Cat Tails, and all of this information now will be down below too. So just so you know. Anyway, she started with a crystal board that was in Gail Butler's book. And it was this beautiful mosaic board, and I had to have it. And so I went out and I tried to create it myself. I mean, I bought all these supplies at Hobby Lobby, and oh, I failed miserably. I am not an artist. Anyway, the next one was Crystal and Gemstone Divination by Gail Butler. A wonderful video. Learn how to cast crystals for divination, Lithomancy. And that is by Dawn Kirkham. And that's wonderful video, because she actually, goes over and she does a few of the examples of readings. And then there's Crystal Divination, Messages from Your Guides. Pick a Bunch of Crystals by Alina's Alchemy. All right, this one was that borderline esoteric kind of strictly intuitive reading, but she was very professional about it, and I just really like the way that she did it and described it. So I give her a thumbs up. All right, finally, I didn't just pluck my definitions for my stones out of thin air. I read crystal directories, some of which I've already mentioned in the books, and also the websites. I took into consideration the history of the stones and how they were used in ancient times. I also looked at their properties and how they're best used by people today. And also these diviners, I took a serious look at their definitions of divination as well. And here are the best websites that I found for educational reasons out there. Gemstone.com, crystals.com. Now, if you go there, click on the Learn link, a lot of information there. I think one of my favorite was Grove and Grotto. And you click on, all right, they sell crystals there. So you would click on shop by category, and then crystals and gemstones. And then they have the gemstones for sale. So if you click on any gemstone, it gives you this really brief backstory and divination purpose. So I really, really liked that. I thought that was good. And then there's allcrystal.com. So with this series, I hope to shorten your learning curve, if ever so slightly, by providing you with these resources and how I learned to use them to develop my own system. Next up, I'm going to do a video on exactly how I did just that. If you liked this video, I really need you to give me a thumbs up, because the algorithm is not going to like the fact that I'm switching from tarot to crystals. I'm not actually switching, but I know I'm going to throw it for a loop. So anybody who likes it, that's going to help. Also, if you haven't already subscribed, do so you can get my next videos. All right, then I'll see you next week. Bye.